Story number 1. Title: Haunted Skies, The Curse of Flight 093, and the Hangar from Hell. I've always been a curious person, so when my friend Jenna, a budding documentary filmmaker, approached me in 2001 with a story she'd stumbled upon, I was instantly intrigued. "It's about Flight 093, she whispered, a hint of fear in her eyes. "And something even darker hiding in a suburban hangar." Jenna, who was just 23 at the time, had a lead on a haunted airplane hangar in a suburb outside of Chicago. Several technicians and mechanics had reported inexplicable events, ghostly apparitions of old pilots, phantom engine roars, and more. This seemed to center around the unfortunate Flight 093, which took off but never landed. We decided to document everything. It was just Jenna, our sound technician Mike, researcher Alex, and me. We began by visiting the families of those who were aboard Flight 093. One particular evening stood out. We were in the living room of Sarah, a 28-year-old former flight attendant whose sister had been aboard. Sarah, with eyes brimming with tears, shared her story. "One night, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and when I turned, there was my sister, in her flight uniform. She whispered, 'The hangar,' before vanishing." Chilled to our bones, we knew the hangar held answers. Upon arrival, it looked unassuming. The local mechanic, Tim, a 29-year-old guy with tattoos and a piercing, guided us in. "Don't stay after dark," he warned, recounting an evening when he saw apparitions of old pilots, seemingly searching for something. One evening, while we were reviewing footage, Alex discovered an old newspaper clipping from 1987. It talked about a secret group, devil worshippers, using the hangar for sinister rituals. They were rumored to summon spirits, binding them to the hangar. Armed with this information, we decided to camp out in the hangar overnight. As night fell, the atmosphere grew thick with tension. Jenna's camera picked up ghostly figures of pilots wandering, seemingly trapped. An old radio in the corner crackled to life, and we heard the distressed final transmission of Flight 093. A spectral figure appeared, a young pilot with anguished eyes. "Help us," he whispered. Suddenly, the entire hangar came alive. Engines roared to life, lights flickered, and ghostly apparitions rushed around us. At the center of it all, we saw a dark, shadowy figure, the leader of the devil worship group from the clipping. Jenna, determined to free the spirits, started reciting a counter-ritual she found during her research. As she chanted, the atmosphere grew chaotic. The leader's spirit seemed to weaken, but it didn't go without a fight. Alex, in an attempt to protect Jenna, was knocked unconscious. With one final push, Jenna completed the ritual. Silence descended. The spirits, now freed, gave us grateful nods before fading away. We left the hangar, shaken but alive. Jenna's documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, went on to gain millions of views, but at a personal cost. Alex suffered from trauma, and we all bore the scars of that terrifying experience. Looking back, I wonder if our insatiable curiosity drew us to the hangar, or if it was fate. Whatever the case, Flight 093 and its ghostly passengers will forever be etched in our memories. Story number 2. Title: Phantom Flight, Unveiling the Ghostly Secrets of the Skies. Back in 2002, I was an up-and-coming journalist, hunting for my big break. That's when I met Mark, a 26-year-old pilot with tales that would make your skin crawl. He approached me one chilly evening. "I think the world needs to hear about Flight 093, he said, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "And other mid-air mysteries." My interest piqued. Mark introduced me to his friends, Sarah and Jake, both co-pilots. As young aviators, they had heard whispers about Flight 093 and experienced their share of unexplained phenomena. We sat down at a local diner in a quiet suburb, where they began to share their stories. Sarah, a vibrant 25-year-old with a twinkle of dread in her eyes, started. During night flights, I'd occasionally notice mysterious lights alongside the plane. Not just regular lights, but almost like otherworldly orbs, pulsating and following us. But as soon as I'd alert others, they'd vanish. Jake, on the other hand, recounted how instruments in his cockpit would go haywire. Compasses spinning erratically, screens flickering with static and ghostly faces, and sudden temperature drops that fogged the cockpit. It felt haunted. However, it was Mark's story that chilled us to the bone. Flight 093, he began. I once heard its final transmission. Voices crying out, mixed with devilish chants, as if some dark ritual was being performed mid-air. Rumor had it that the plane's crew had been involved in devil worship, trying to harness the energies of the skies. But something went terribly wrong, leading to the plane's mysterious disappearance. Inspired and terrified, I decided to make a documentary. Together with a small team, Lana, our camera operator, and Elliot, our sound technician, we delved into the world of mid-air mysteries. Our investigation took us to old hangars, retired pilots, and finally, the family of a Flight 093 flight attendant. Amy, the younger sister of the missing flight attendant, shared a diary with us. Scribbled in frantic handwriting, the entries spoke of rituals, attempts to appease some ancient sky deity, and hints of an exorcism planned for the ill-fated flight. With Amy's lead, we found a retired air traffic controller, Ben, who had a recording of the last moments of Flight 093. As we played it, icy fingers of dread gripped us. The audio was a haunting mix of devilish chants, desperate cries, and then, silence. Our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, became a sensation. It not only unveiled the chilling tales of pilots, but also the dark world of supernatural occurrences thousands of feet above ground. After the release, I often found myself staring at the vast expanse of the sky, wondering about its mysteries. One thing was certain, the skies held more secrets than we could ever fathom. And Flight 093 was just the beginning. Story number 3. Title, Silent Skies, the eerie echoes of Flight 093 and beyond. In 2003, I was a fresh graduate with a passion for uncovering dark mysteries. It was on one summer evening, when my old college mate, Lucas, called me up, voice trembling. You remember those stories about Flight 093? There's more. Lucas worked at a small radio station located in a quiet suburb, intercepting and recording aircraft transmissions. Lately, he'd been hearing things, distress signals that sent shivers down his spine. Pilots and crew, moments before going silent, described eerie, supernatural encounters. I immediately sensed an opportunity. Gathering a team, Amber, a passionate video editor, and Chris, a sound analyst, we decided to dive deep into the world of lost transmissions. The core of our investigation was Flight 093, but Lucas assured us it was just the tip of the iceberg. One night, Lucas played a recording for us. A pilot's voice, filled with terror, described a ghostly figure walking down the aisle, while the instruments flashed with images from past flights and voices whispered chants of devil worship. Then, static. We reached out to former crew members of other flights, who shared similar encounters. One stewardess, Lily, recounted a chilling incident. A passenger who wasn't on our list sat in 7A. When I approached him, he looked up, in his eyes, they were voids. He whispered, "They never land," before vanishing. Our research led us to Clara, the daughter of Flight 093's head steward. She handed us a journal. In it, her mother spoke of a group within the crew involved in dark rituals, trying to communicate with ancient aerial spirits. The last entry ominously described plans for an ultimate communication on the flight's final journey. Intrigued and horrified, we decided to conduct a seance inside an old plane at an abandoned airfield. Using the journal's rituals as a guide, We hoped to communicate with the spirits of Flight 093. The night was moonless. As we began, the temperature inside the plane plummeted. Instruments flickered and a ghostly SOS in Morse code echoed. Suddenly, apparitions appeared, crew and passengers from various flights, including Flight 093. They all spoke in unison, "Free us from the eternal flight." Determined to help, we modified the ritual to release the trapped spirits. The plane began to shake violently. Ghostly screams filled the air. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The spirits were free. Our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, was an instant hit. It not only shed light on the haunting mysteries of the skies, but also gave peace to lost souls. To this day, when I hear of a plane going missing, a chill runs down my spine. The skies, as I've learned, are full of both wonder and terror. And while we freed many, there might still be others out there, forever lost in their eternal flight. Story number 4. Title: Serving the Skies, The Tale of the Vanishing Stewardess. In 2004, I was a young reporter working for a small-town newspaper in a quiet suburb. My life was uneventful until one day, when a letter slid through the office mail slot. It was from a woman named Rebecca, claiming she had encountered the phantom flight attendant. Curiosity piqued. I met Rebecca, a 28-year-old businesswoman who frequently flew for work. Over coffee, she recounted her eerie experience. Mid-flight, a stewardess I hadn't seen before offered me a drink. She had pale skin, hollow eyes, and an old-fashioned uniform. I thanked her, but when I tried to catch her attention later, no one else saw her. Rebecca's story wasn't isolated. Several others reached out with similar accounts, all describing the same mysterious stewardess. Intrigued, I assembled a team to dig deeper. Jenny, a tech-savvy researcher, and Theo, a videographer with a penchant for the supernatural, eagerly joined. As we delved into airline records, a name repeatedly cropped up: Lydia Wren, a flight attendant from the 70s who tragically died during a botched mid-air exorcism. Rumors suggested she was involved in devil worship and her spirit was trapped on board, forever serving passengers. We managed to track down Lydia's sister, Elise, who shared old letters and diaries. The writings unveiled Lydia's descent into the occult, her involvement with a secretive on-board cult that performed rituals at high altitudes, believing it brought them closer to dark deities. Feeling a mix of dread and determination, we decided to board one of the flights Lydia was said to frequent. Mid-flight, Theo, holding his camera, whispered, "There she is." A chilling figure, unmistakably Lydia, moved gracefully down the aisle. Summoning courage, I approached her. "Lydia?" I asked tentatively. She turned, her eyes pools of eternal sorrow. "Help me," she whispered before vanishing. We knew what we had to do. With guidance from Elise and Lydia's diaries, we organized an exorcism. Held within a grounded plane, we aimed to free Lydia's tormented spirit. The exorcism was a terrifying ordeal. The plane quaked, overhead bins flung open, and ghostly apparitions darted about. But eventually, a serene calm settled. Lydia, now radiant and at peace, appeared before us, mouthing a silent thank you before fading away. Our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, sent shockwaves. Exposing Lydia's tale and the sinister undertones of her cult, it was a viral sensation. Driving home after our premiere, the skies seemed clearer, the stars brighter. But one thing was certain: the friendly skies were not always as friendly as they seemed. And though Lydia's tale was over, who knew how many others lurked in the shadows? Story number 5. Title: Haunting Heights, The Secrets Beyond the Glass. In 2005, I was a writer for a travel magazine, always in search of unique experiences. My world turned upside down after a flight from New York to LA. I had the window seat, and as I stared out, I saw what looked like an old plane wreck on an island, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Dismissing it as exhaustion, I continued with my life, but a part of me couldn't let go. I started a blog detailing my experience and was inundated with stories from others. Stories of shadowy figures floating near planes, of unknown islands only visible for seconds. The most recurring account was from a flight, yes, you guessed it, Flight 093. Feeling compelled, I contacted Ella, a pilot, and Max, an air traffic controller, to shed light on these high-altitude horrors. Together with Grace, a videographer eager to document this mystery, we began our investigation. We interviewed countless passengers and compiled a chilling montage. Hannah, a 27-year-old photographer, shared a haunting image of a ghostly figure hovering outside her window at 30,000 feet. Jake, a young DJ, played an eerie audio clip he'd recorded during a flight, distant cries for help amidst static. Our search led us to an aviation historian, Dr. Lillian. She revealed a suppressed chapter of Flight 093's history. On its doomed final journey, it was rumored to have been diverted by these supernatural sightings. The crew and passengers, entranced, performed impromptu rituals of worship, drawn by the allure of these high-altitude apparitions. Dr. Lillian handed us an old flight log she'd managed to acquire secretly. Scribbled notes described strange islands and bizarre landscapes that shouldn't exist. One entry stood out, "They beckon us." The window shows the way. We decided to retrace Flight 093's path. Equipped with cameras and a determination to unearth the truth, we boarded a chartered plane. Hours in, the unimaginable occurred. An island emerged from the clouds, its landscapes morphing, now a serene beach, then a dense forest, followed by a snowy peak. At its center, the unmistakable wreckage of an old plane. As we hovered, the cabin grew cold. Ghostly whispers filled the air, a mournful choir of lost souls. It was clear, this was a portal to another realm, a liminal space between life and death, anchored by the tragedy of Flight 093. Respecting the sanctity of the site, we decided not to land. However, our footage and findings formed the backbone of our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, the mystery they want to bury. The documentary went viral, resonating with viewers worldwide. While skeptics dismissed our findings, countless others found solace, finally having their eerie experiences validated. Even now, when I find myself on a plane, I can't help but stare out of the window, half expecting to catch a glimpse of that mysterious island. The skies, I've realized, hold wonders and horrors in equal measure, and Flight 093's legacy is a testament to that. Story number 6. Title: Vanished Hours, The Enigma of Aerial Anomalies. In 2006, I had recently taken a job as a junior editor at a renowned travel magazine headquartered in a peaceful suburb. It was on a crisp autumn day when an unmarked envelope landed on my desk, its contents sparking an obsession I hadn't anticipated. Inside were flight tickets and a handwritten note. Ever had a 5-hour journey feel like 5 minutes? Attached was a news clipping of Flight 093, hinting at time discrepancies. Curiosity led me to the airline's online forums, and I was shocked. Numerous passengers recounted flights that were supposed to last hours but felt like mere moments. No recollections, just blank spaces in their memories. Wanting to delve deeper, I connected with Alex, a 26-year-old digital investigator, and Mia, a passionate aviation enthusiast. Together, we embarked on a mission to decipher this anomaly. As we started interviewing passengers, patterns emerged. Evan, a young guitarist, mentioned he'd strummed only 2 chords before landing. Sarah, a grad student, remembered buckling up, closing her eyes, and then abruptly touching down. But it was the testimony of Clara, a former air hostess of Flight 093, that chilled our bones. Sometimes, she whispered, I'd see figures moving in the shadows, murmuring inaudible chants. And then, in the blink of an eye, we'd land. research led us to Dr. Nolan, a physicist, who had a theory: specific flight paths intersected with temporal pockets, causing shifts in perceived time. But there was more. An old legend spoke of a cult that worshipped ancient time deities, performing rituals to manipulate time's flow. Securing seats on the notorious Flight 093, we decided to experience the phenomenon firsthand. Armed with cameras and monitors, we felt a mix of anticipation and fear. As the flight progressed, a heavy fog enveloped the plane. The instruments showed mere minutes passing, but the outside world suggested hours. Suddenly, ghostly figures materialized, circling us, their chants growing louder. The realization hit: these were the remnants of the ancient cult, forever trapped in their own time loop. As suddenly as it began, it ended. We had landed. Our watches showed a 15-minute journey, but night had turned to day. Our findings formed the crux of our documentary: Why Flight 093 Never Landed, the mystery they want to bury. Its release sent ripples across the aviation and scientific communities. I moved on, but the skies never felt the same. Every time I peer out of a plane window, I wonder about the mysteries it holds, and the thin line separating time as we know it and the enigmas beyond comprehension. Story number 7. Title: Whispers at 30,000 feet, the terrifying truth of Flight 093. 2007, in a bustling suburban town, I landed my dream job as an audio engineer at a prominent radio station. But dreams, as I was soon to find out, often come intertwined with nightmares. One evening, while working late, I received an anonymous package. Inside was a recorded audio tape labeled Flight 093 Listen and Believe. Intrigued, I played the tape and what I heard sent shivers down my spine. Amidst regular pilot announcements, there was an unsettling lullaby, followed by whispered chants in an unrecognizable language. The following day, I shared this with my colleagues: Jenna, a paranormal investigator, and Mark, an aviation journalist. Both were under 30 and hungry for a compelling story. As we dug deeper, testimonies flooded in from passengers who had heard the exact haunting whispers over the plane's speaker system. One account stood out. Layla, a 28-year-old nurse, recounted how mid-flight, the cabin went icy cold and a ghostly voice began reciting numbers over the intercom. As the sequence ended, a chilling message echoed: they shouldn't have landed. She noticed that many passengers had a distant, trance-like expression, seemingly entranced by the message. We approached pilots, but most brushed off our inquiries. However, a retired pilot, Captain Hughes, reluctantly shared his experience. On a fog-laden night, he overheard a ghostly conversation between what sounded like a distressed female and a menacing entity discussing a dark pact. Further investigation led us to an old urban legend. Flight 093 had once crashed in the 1940s due to a demonic pact gone awry. The flight was later reinstated, but passengers occasionally reported hearing fragments of that doomed conversation, especially on foggy nights. To validate these stories, the three of us boarded Flight 093 on a particularly foggy evening. As the plane reached cruising altitude, the lights flickered, the temperature dropped, and a haunting lullaby began playing, followed by the whispered conversation Captain Hughes had described. The climax was a voice we hadn't heard before, a chilling warning: beware the landing. We felt an immediate drop in altitude before everything returned to normal. Post our experience, we released our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, the mystery they want to bury. It became an overnight sensation, sparking debates about the interplay of the supernatural and aviation. Looking back, my memories are a mix of awe and dread. While the skies beckon with their vastness, Flight 093 is a constant reminder of the mysteries and eerie tales that hover just beyond our understanding. Story number 8. Title: Nocturnal Flyers, The Haunting Truth of Flight 093. Back in 2008, I was a young, driven videographer living in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. My world was about to be jolted into the realm of the supernatural when I received a call late one evening from Amelia, a fellow journalist. I saw someone, or something, walking on the wing. And I wasn't the only one, Amelia whispered. She detailed how during a midnight flight on 093, passengers including herself had seen ghostly figures, illuminated by the moon, walking calmly on the plane's wings. Their faces, she claimed, were devoid of any emotion. As intrigued as I was terrified, I roped in two friends, Oscar, a 29-year-old pilot with a penchant for the paranormal, and Mia, a fearless 27-year-old aviation engineer. Together, we set out to uncover the truth behind these moonlit wing walkers. As the tales poured in, the descriptions were eerily consistent. Long, flowing clothes. Eyes that glowed a soft silver. Graceful, almost dance-like movements. The figures seemed to take flight from the wings and disappear into the moonlit abyss. With Oscar's connections, we secured permission to set up cameras on Flight 093. That night, with bated breath, we monitored the live feed. Around midnight, our screens captured it. Spectral figures emerged, strolling on the wings. Determined to find answers, we dug into the history of Flight 093. Legend had it that in the early days of aviation, a troupe of performers known as the Sky Dancers would perform stunts on planes. On one fateful night in 1935, their performance on Flight 093 took a tragic turn when an unexpected gust of wind sent them plummeting to their deaths. Mia made a chilling discovery. The materials used to build parts of the modern 093 were salvaged from the very aircraft that had crashed in 1935. Had the spirits of the Sky Dancers tethered themselves to these components? To confirm, we conducted a seance on board. As the plane hummed around us, a voice echoed through the medium, "We only wish to perform. To dance among the stars." Realizing these spirits meant no harm, we decided to tell their tale. Our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, went viral, turning skeptics into believers. As for me, my memories of 2008 aren't just of spectral visions on wings, but of the silent cries of trapped souls yearning for release. Flight 093 became a testament to tales that, though buried by time, live on in the moonlit skies. Story number 9. Title: Phantoms at 35,000 feet, The Eerie Tales of Flight 093. The summer of 2009 is seared into my memory. Not because it was particularly bright or filled with the usual joys, but because of the shadows it cast on my life. I was a young, aspiring filmmaker, living in a quiet suburb. I was always on the hunt for a story, something unique, gripping. That's when I met Grace, a cabin crew member for Flight 093. Our chance encounter at a local cafe began with casual banter but quickly took a chilling turn. You ever feel someone's watching you? Even if you're miles above the ground? Grace asked, her eyes darting around nervously. She whispered tales of seeing passengers who weren't there on the manifest, disappearing mid-flight. Objects moving without any cause, like a child's toy rolling uphill in the aisle. Eerie laughter resonating from empty seats. Her stories drew me in, and soon I was introduced to other crew members, Dylan, a 28-year-old steward with a morose demeanor, and Lily, a bubbly 26-year-old air hostess who'd lost her cheer after a few flights on 093. As I delved deeper, more tales emerged. A spectral figure of a woman in an old-fashioned dress wandering the aisles, vanishing when approached. An overhead bin that would open and shut violently, though no turbulence was reported. Determined to capture this supernatural activity, I set up cameras all over Flight 093. The footage I captured was spine-chilling. A seatbelt fastening on its own, overhead lights flickering to spell out help, and most unsettling, a reflection of a ghostly child on the window pane, pointing outside. With a team including Ryan, a 29-year-old historian, and Zoe, a 24-year-old tech-savvy friend, We discovered that Flight 093 was built over the remnants of an older aircraft that had mysteriously disappeared in the 1950s, only to be found crashed with no survivors. In one particularly gut-wrenching account, an old newspaper article reported a young mother and her son who were aboard the ill-fated plane. Their last transmission was a desperate SOS, with a background lullaby, a mother trying to calm her terrified child. With the help of Clara, a 30-year-old medium, we held a session aboard Flight 093. What followed was a night of revelations and heartbreak. The spirits aboard were trapped in a loop, forever reliving their last moments. Our documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, was more than just a collection of haunted tales. It was a testament to the souls lost, longing for peace. As I look back at 2009, I'm reminded not just of the terror, but of the unfinished stories that linger in the ether, waiting for someone to listen, to understand, to free them. Story number 10. Title: Protectors of the Unseen, Sky Marshals Beyond Duty. A year when I was obsessed with all things aviation, from the glamour to the tales of the high skies. While living in a peaceful U.S. suburb, I stumbled upon a local bar frequented by pilots, crew, and occasionally, sky marshals. It was here that I met Alex and Jenna, two marshals with stories that went far beyond the usual. They were tales of interventions not with terrorists or unruly passengers, but with forces that defy comprehension. One evening, as the bar's old jukebox played a haunting melody, Alex began, "You ever hear of the term high-altitude hauntings? Trust me, they're not just myths." He recalled a flight over the Atlantic where the captain alerted him to strange shadows flitting past the cockpit windows. No bird, no drone, just ethereal forms. When he entered the cockpit, the temperature dropped drastically, and the instruments began spinning erratically. He recited prayers and even brandished his weapon at the void, feeling a malevolent presence receding. Jenna had her tales too. "It's not just about what we see," she whispered, "it's also what we hear." On one red-eye flight, while passengers were asleep, soft whispers echoed through the air vents, reciting passengers' names, followed by bone-chilling predictions. She had to intervene, calming a spectral voice crying in the restroom, appeasing it with a promise to convey its message to loved ones. Eager to dig deeper, I teamed up with Sam, a tech geek with a penchant for the paranormal, and Rachel, an aviation historian. We discovered that Flight 093 had once diverted to an airstrip near an old burial ground after an engine failure. The brief touchdown was enough for some spirits to hitch a ride. I decided to record these stories. Setting up discreet cameras and mics aboard Flight 093, we captured incredible evidence. At one point, the words, "Why did you leave me?" appeared, scrawled on a frosty window, then a sudden shadow moving down the aisle on the night vision. But the most harrowing event was our seance led by Leo, a 27-year-old medium. The plane, on the ground, became a theater of otherworldly drama. Spirits spoke of unfinished lives, of messages they wished to send, of their attraction to the energy of the living. My documentary, Why Flight 093 Never Landed, The Mystery They Want to Bury, not only unveiled the secrets of the sky marshals but delved deep into the blurred line between our world and the next. Now, when I board a flight and spot a sky marshal, I don't just see a protector from conventional threats. I see a guardian of realms, one who ensures that our journey isn't disrupted by the souls drifting between worlds.